guys, so this week is going to be a real adventure. I ended up buying some stuff 2 provinces away. So if you can imagine, it's 1,500 kilometers, probably over 1,000 miles away from here. I have a pile of antiques that needs to get picked up. Normally I have my driver deliver them for me, but unfortunately he's not available right now. So I started looking into what the cost would be to get these items brought in. And it turns out it's going to be probably about $600 to $800 to ship. So I came up with a plan. And that plan is I'm going to buy a vehicle. I give myself a $750 budget. I'm going to go buy a vehicle in Manitoba. I'm going to get a temporary permit to drive it back, and I'm going to bring it back all the way through Manitoba back to Edmonton here, and I'm going to try and find antiques all along the way. So this is going to be next week. I'm going to be doing this. So I'm going to do little videos to kind of keep us up to date. But the search begins now to try and find a vehicle that's going to work out. So maybe thinking a van or a truck. So let's see what I can find in my $750 price range, because that way the van won't cost me anything more than the shipping. And so bear with me on this trip. This is going to be an adventure, so stay tuned for the trip, and we'll take you all across Canada here on this adventure. But let's start by finding a vehicle. Hey everyone, so today I start looking for my mystery van. I'm trying to find one in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm going to start there and drive my way all the way back to Edmonton, which is about 1,500 kilometers. But first I need a vehicle to do it in. So I am now looking to see what I can find out there. So I've kind of gone through, I'm going on some search engines here, seeing what's for sale in the classifieds, and the pickings are a little slim. I've given myself a budget of $750, and I'm hoping I can find something that's A, going to be able to fit a bunch of stuff in the back of it, but B, also be reliable enough to make it back on the journey without breaking down. So this is the trick. There's been a lot of stuff that's like $500, $600, but it's really beat up and really bad condition. So, which is kind of be expected for that price. So I have to try and maybe spend, get close to that 750 range to find something that maybe is somewhat roadworthy. So again, the goal is I find this vehicle, I get a permit, and I drive it back. So the search begins. So let's see what I can find.
Using online classifieds, I found a few likely vehicles. One I was interested in was a cargo van for just $500. I thought it'd be great to have lots of space to carry stuff on the road, but he said it probably wouldn't make the trip, and that could mean disaster. So after phoning a few more ads, I finally landed on one that looked pretty good. A Dodge Caravan. Low miles, one-owner vehicle, and it's mechanically excellent. Its only downfall is some rust in the rockers, but that won't matter for this trip. So I'm going to reach out and see if they'll move on their asking price of $1,000 so I can stay on budget.
Okay, so this is really good news. Talked to the owner. He's going to be available the Friday that I fly in. So I'm going to fly in next Friday, and I'm going to meet with him and pick the van up at his house. So throw my plate on, get my insurance on it, and start driving it back home. So the adventure begins.
And as for the van, we agreed on a price of $650. That's $100 under budget. So now I'm moving into the third phase, and that's going to be planning the flight. Because I'm using travel points and trying to keep the budget low, I'm going to be booking a flight that's really early in the morning on Friday. So I have to be on the flight by 6 a.m., which means I have to be up around 4:30 in the morning to get to the airport on time. Thankfully, I've got a great father-in-law who's offered to drive me out early in the morning, and I'm really thankful because, well, that would suck. So I'm going to be out there nice and early. I'm flying WestJet. I love flying WestJet. They're always friendly, never had a problem. So I'm going out on WestJet, and it's going to be a great trip. I'll be flying from Edmonton to Winnipeg. There I'll pick up my van, check some stuff around the Winnipeg area, and then head out on the road to Yorkton. From there, I'll head out to Saskatoon, check some sights along the way, and then beeline back home for Edmonton, hopefully before the sun goes down.
Okay, so I'm going to be traveling pretty light. So I'm just bringing this one backpack. Inside of it, I'm going to have a change of clothes for a couple days, toothbrush, that kind of stuff. And in this bag, which I'm going to put in there, it's going to have a tarp and some tie downs in case I get something big or heavy, so I can protect the interior or cover up some stuff in the back. That should be enough to kind of keep me going. I'm sure that's going to look really funny when I take it through airport security. I'm sure I'll get flagged for carrying a tarp and random stuff. Who knows? But yeah, so that's it. Basically, the rest is all going to be going from my bag to a van full of stuff. So quite the little journey here.
So 5:30 in the morning, heading out to the airport with my father-in-law Dave. We're pretty well ready to go. I got my backpack, I got my lucky red Chuck Taylors on, and we're gonna head out to the airport. So off on my journey.
Arrived at the airport safe and sound and on time. I'm traveling light, so there's no checked baggage, so this should be a breeze.
So inside the terminal, just got through security not that long ago. The only problem we had with my bag was my old-timey razor, but thankfully, as I showed in another video, the razor blade comes out of these, so I was able to keep my razor, which I would have been bummed out about because this is a really good one with it's adjustable. So I get to keep my old razor. So I'm at the airport just waiting for my plane. So hopefully I'll be going down and get another plane within a couple minutes. I guess I wasn't thinking that they would confiscate the razor, but not the tarps and the tie downs and all the other random stuff I have in there. So at least I didn't have to go into security and have the rubber glove treatment. So I'm just gonna get ready to board my flight and then off I go. Okay, so made it to Winnipeg, just landed. Now to find a cab and go pick up the van. Step one is complete. I got my van, just picked it up, and let me show it to you. It looks like it's going to be a good vehicle for what I need it for this trip. So this is a 2000 Dodge Grand Caravan SE. I bought it from the original owners. It has some rust. That's probably the worst thing about this whole van, is that it's got some rust on it, so it doesn't look pretty. Mechanically though, it's only got 127,000 kilometers. The interior is like in mid shape. So to make a comfortable ride on the way back, had to make the tough call in terms of what I was going to do for storage space here. Unfortunately, I don't have room to get the get my stuff in here with all the seats. So I'm going to try and keep the back two seats here, the buckets. And I left the third row seat behind, so now it's just got this big cargo space back here, which will hopefully be full as we go along. My worry is fitting that big gas pump in here. I don't even know if I'll be able to keep these two back seats here, but I'm gonna try. So first impressions of the van. Interior is excellent, so I mean I'm gonna feel very comfortable driving in the van for sure. The engine seems to sound pretty good. Starts right up. So mechanically, I think it's going to be all right. So I know it's kind of a beater when you buy a $650 van, but I decided it didn't matter with the rust for me as long as it would mechanically make it there just fine. So I'm going to start heading down the road. And so transmission shift's good, no weird noises. The tires all look like they were in good shape. So I think this van will just do it. I think this van will do just nicely. So now off to make my first stops of my adventure. So I've gotten just a few minutes from picking up my van, and I spot this. Now I wish I had a trailer with me. I might actually still stop and talk to the guy. It's a Volkswagen van, but it's the truck version. It's a quad cab, split window, very early vehicle, pretty cool and rare. I mean, the fact it's a split window, it doesn't even look all that rusty. So I might knock on this guy's door and see if he wants to sell me this van. So you can't stop in Winnipeg and not take a trip to Mike's General Store, just located off of the corner of Major Drive in St. Anne's. So really cool shop. You can tell from the outside he's gonna have some neat stuff indoors. So I'm gonna go in and have a browse around, see what there is to see. But my real trip is to go to a guy's house this afternoon, just out of town. But just thought I'd stop here and show you a cool shop. So just left Mike's, was able to pick up a few cool cans, a really big porcelain Robin Hood flower sign. In here are a couple Canadian Pacific steamer ship posters that are original, some cans, really cool old erector set. So got some cool stuff. So now I'm off to Candle Company Antiques. Let's go check. So this is the second stop on my journey today. Again, it's a cool old building. This used to be a electrical transformer building that ran power lines out of it. They've converted it into their house on the right, and then the business here central. So I'm going to inquire about some of these signs, of course, but I'm going to go and check and see what I can buy.
Unfortunately, none of those cool signs were for sale, but I'm going to have a look around anyway.
So the inside is pretty packed. A lot of the stuff looks to be vintage. Some of the signs, unfortunately, are reproduction, but there's going to be lots to dig through. Lots to look at for sure. So right now we are driving down River Road, which is probably one of the most scenic little roads that runs north of Winnipeg. I'll just pan over so you can see there. We run directly next to the river. There's going to be lots of cool, great old historic houses along this road. And from what I recall, there was a really neat antique store just at the end of the road too. So the cool thing about River Road is there's a crazy amount of nice vintage historic properties. This is Taro House, which is really nice estate. There's another great old place. Big stone house, probably been there since the 1800s, when the fur traders used to use this river. You can see the proximity to the river. It's just right over there. Okay, so it's gonna be time to stop for lunch. I'm gonna stop at the famous Skinner's Hot Dogs, located right by the bridge of Lockport. So I'm gonna go in and grab a dog.
So Skinner's has been in business since the 1920s, and the decor in here really hasn't changed much, probably since the 60s. With the vinyl booths and the jukeboxes, it's a really cool place to visit if you're ever in this area. So after a quick bite to eat, it's time to hit the road and follow up a lead I've got just outside of town in Beausejour. Beausejour, Manitoba is located about a half hour to 40 minutes outside of Winnipeg and means lovely place to live. It was founded mainly because they had sands and silica, and they used to make glass bottles, and the Glassworks factory still remains to this day and is deemed a historic site in Manitoba. So just on the other end of town in Beausejour is a gentleman I'm meeting with this morning. He's got an old porcelain Pepsi sign, not sure what else he might have. He said he's got some other old stuff. So I'm going to go have a look and see what there is to see, because you just never know until you follow these leads. So I arrived on site and he had tons of stuff, not just signs, but antiques, old cars like this Cadillac limo. He had hearses, motorcycles, pretty much anything you can imagine was sitting out here at this property. Old skidoos. He even had the very first skidoo ever made out there. This is a Mach 1 Mustang. It was super cool, unfortunately buried. This old airport limousine, Chrysler 300. Just really, really neat stuff. This van, this Paranoia van, was used in a movie back in the 70s. It's a little custom motorcycle, lots of digging. You know, every building was basically full. There was lots of outbuildings. There was just tons of stuff to go through. A lot of it just crammed in. But if you looked around, there was old cans and all kinds of neat stuff. So I managed to pull a few things out of this building, and I kept wandering around to find some more. Okay, so far I've been in town. It's 3 o'clock now. I've been in town just a couple hours. Well, I guess about 5 hours or so. And I've found some cool stuff. Kind of hear it rattling around in the back there. Was at a guy's place earlier. I went there because he had a sign listed online. Turned out he had a scrapyard and he had all kinds of stuff. Ended up with some cool old sirens, like police sirens and lights. One really cool chrome one that's like about that big. Has a light built into it and a siren, which is pretty neat. I got some old Coke signs, 7-Up signs, just all kinds of stuff. So now I'm just kind of cruising around. There's a couple of estate sales nearby I'm going to stop at, and then I'll hit a couple other antique spots and see what I can find. So that's the update so far. So just got back into town, back into Winnipeg from out in the country, picked up a van full of cool stuff. I'm going to head to the Forks and see what the antique mall has and if there's anything cool there. So off and on my way over to the Forks, and I'll give you a little tour there. Once a thriving rail yard and transfer station, just adjacent to the Via Rail station, or Old Canadian Pacific Station, the Forks has now become a great place for arts and crafts and antiques, and anytime there's something cool happening in Winnipeg, it seems to be happening down here. See all the power stations and cool old buildings. So,
Gonna head inside the Forks building here and check out what they have in the basement, which is an antique mall, and see if there's anything cool to see. So in the basement of the Johnson Terminal lies the antique mall here in Winnipeg. So we're gonna go downstairs and have a look-see.
Well, the inside was completely packed full of really cool stuff. Lots of smalls, some really big cool things like this big boy. And I did pick up a couple things while I was there. So checked in at a hotel. I'm just recalibrating, seeing if there's anything more I can go look at tonight before I head out tomorrow. The plan is to hit a couple places tomorrow morning and then head out on the highway. Now I have a pretty exciting pick planned for Sunday morning, 8 a.m. I have to be in the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan. That's not the actual town name, mind you. There might be a town called Middle of Nowhere, Saskatchewan. Apparently he's got lots of cool old signs and antiques and things, so I'm gonna go check and see what he has. So tonight I'm gonna go to the Red Top, famous drive-in for burgers, grab a hamburger and some fries out there, and then come back and hopefully find some other antiques. So yeah, off we go. So it's the second day of my adventure here in Winnipeg. It's also the day I'm going to start driving down the highway and start heading back home. My goal is to get to Saskatchewan by tonight, so hopefully that'll happen and the van will be okay on the highway. I'm headed back out this morning, and it's early. It's like 6 in the morning right now. The reason I'm up so early is that I'm going back out to a salvage yard outside of town that I was at yesterday, and ended up getting a bunch of old signs, and it was kind of exactly how you hope to find this stuff, like still bolted to the fence of the salvage yard, like old Coke signs and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go back out there and see if I can find some more stuff. So one of the things I like about Manitoba is that all these little small towns are really just like an hour from town. Like you can get from Winnipeg to Stonewall or Beausejour or any number of little small towns within an hour, including the lakes too. So I mean, you can get right to the beaches and all that really in a short amount of time. So this is quite a bit to do. This is a lot of nice open prairie and farmland, and it's just kind of a nice little place. Probably the thing I like the best about Winnipeg itself is the architecture. None of the old buildings have been really torn down, or in some cases renovated, so they can. Some of them look a little bit run down, but they're pretty cool still. So I like coming out here, seeing what I can find. I'm just about in Beausejour, which is the small town I'm headed to check out the Scrapyard. When I went out there yesterday, it was just piled high with stuff. I mean, I had to climb over things. It was crazy. And crazy in a good way for me. I love that kind of stuff. But guy had a really great collection of old snowmobiles. I think what he said is he had the very first snowmobile that was ever made out there, which I'm sure has got to be pretty rare. But unfortunately, none of the snowmobile stuff was for sale. That was his precious collection out there. So I'm going to see if there's anything more I can find. Yesterday, got a whole bunch of really cool signs and some old sirens. Like I got a siren off a fire engine and some police car lights and things like that. So yeah, we're gonna go see what I can get today, and it's just about 10 after 7 in the morning. I'm supposed to be meeting out there at 7:30, so so far right on schedule. So I returned to the yard, and I did find some more antiques, but I also found something else. Do you see it? Can you tell what it is? I think it's cool. I don't know if you do. It's a 1960s Mercedes-Benz ambulance. Now, they only made 400 of these, and this one is all complete, just happens to be sitting in a salvage yard. It's got rust, but I'm gonna bring it home and see if I can fix it up. So just got back from Dennis's place out in Beausejour. My feet are completely soaked. It's still early spring here and the snow has been melting off, so unfortunately my feet went deep in some swampy water. So I'm driving down the highway now with soaking wet feet, and there's nothing more in the world that I wish I had than another pair of shoes. So I might pick some up when I get back into Winnipeg. Did get some cool stuff, got some old signs. We went crawling through an abandoned house he had on the property, and all kinds of neat stuff. So
yeah, I'll give you guys an update at the end of this video and show you kind of the haul from this trip. But yeah, some neat things. But for now, I've got the heater on my feet, and I'm hoping they dry out by the time I get back into Winnipeg. And then I gotta hit the highway and head towards Saskatchewan. So yeah, next stop, a couple antique markets, and then off I go. So as you can probably see in the back, the van's already getting pretty full. This is a day into my journey. So I have to be a little bit careful because I still have to try and fit a big visible gas pump in here. So if that doesn't fit, I have a plan B. My friend Henry, who does my shipping for me, might have a truck freeing up in a few days. So if that's the case, then I will get him to bring the pump out anyway. But yeah, it's turning out to be a fruitful trip. So to that I say I bid Winnipeg farewell. I'm headed out on the highway now. Going to pick up my gas pump in Newdale, Manitoba, so a little ways to go. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better day. Just absolutely stunning outside. So I'm going to enjoy this great highway driving, enjoy my van, which is surprisingly driving flawlessly. And everything works. Cruise control works, air conditioning works. It's actually probably the best vehicle I've ever bought for $650. And I have bought several vehicles for less than $1,000. This is probably the best one. Aside from the fact it's got some ugly rust, it's turning out to be just a stellar little vehicle. So I'm gonna head down the highway, work my way towards Saskatchewan, and try and get to Saskatoon for tomorrow. So off I go.
So I'm back on the highway. I'm just about at the outskirts of Manitoba and going to stop at my friend Derek's place, who's got some signs that I need to pick up. And if you recall, that's the whole reason I needed to make this trip, was to pick these signs up and avoid shipping costs. So I'm going to pick the signs up and yeah, and see what he's got at his place. He's got a pretty cool collection of things. So let's go check it out. So here's some of the stuff I picked up so far. I had to kind of lay it out at Derek's place here to rearrange the van, but yeah, the old police lights, and yeah, pretty packed. He had some really neat stuff too, like this weird, crazy airport shuttle, 6-wheel Olds Tornado. Never seen one before, but yeah, really cool car, really strange car.
So I just picked my signs up not too long ago. I left and I'm just entering into Saskatchewan, just stopping in a small town. And I know I'm in the middle of nowhere when I'm just down to AM radio. There's no FM anymore. So no FM radio for me. Be listening to country music on AM if I want to have any music on the old radio in the van here. So yeah, just gonna cruise around this little town, see if there's anything to find, and then head back on the highway. So I stopped at a garage sale in the town. Not a whole lot of stuff there, but there was this old Black Cat tin. So some people are into Black Cat tobacco tins. Just they're kind of cool. This one, it would have been better if it had the actual cat on it. It was a little older, but it's still cool. So I'm gonna head on to the next town where I hear there might be somebody with some antiques out there. So see what I can find. It's the fun thing about driving down the highway in Canada. You never know when you're gonna come across giant machinery going down the highway. Glad I'm not stuck behind him.
So as I'm driving through this little town, I come across this church with all these signs and antiques outside. It's not an actual antique store, but I thought I'd just poke my head in the door and see what was going on in there. And pretty glad that I did. Have a look. I was definitely not expecting to see this. It's set up like an antique general store inside the church. They even have a Model T inside.
So what prompted you to start collecting and filling up this church like a general store?
Stupidity.
Stupidity? Yeah.
A passion.
Well, yeah, that's usually how it goes.
That's really what it is.
I mean, look at this. You've got it all the way up to the ceiling, and these are vaulted ceilings. Like, how high are the ceilings in here?
You know what? I don't know.
They've got to be like
12, 14?
Oh, higher than that.
No.
Probably, because I'm 6 foot tall, and that's like 3 of me. I'd say.
Yeah,
Like,
the ceiling would be, but not the wall.
not the wall, no. But look at all those cereal boxes, and you've got them all priced and everything too.
I'll tell you, you want a hard find? Try and find it.
Look at this. Like, look at all these old displays. You got the cigarettes still in the packages.
The odd one does. I got some others that are full. But you look at this stuff here, that's 8s and 10s. They're from World War II.
Yeah, you got tons of them.
I do.
It's basically like a real general store from...
What it was geared to be.
Look at this. I love the old cash register too. No, this is something else for sure. Who knew? If I wouldn't have stopped, you know...
You wouldn't have known.
You wouldn't have known, yeah. Sometimes you just got to stop when you see the sign.
What an amazing stop. I'm so glad I stopped at their little museum there. It's really their personal collection that they've got there. More than happy to show people. Really cool place to go. So if you're ever through on Highway 16, definitely stop in and see the guys there. I'd love to have a collection like that myself. And hopefully soon my store will look like that. It's well on its way right now. But now I gotta get back on the highway and head towards my hotel so I can rest up tonight. So here we go. So I got to my hotel safely, checked in, did a little sightseeing around town, and settled in for what I thought would be a good night's sleep.
So a little colder and cloudier out today. It looks like it rained last night. The van's all wet. I woke up and had a little surprise this morning. I had a tick right here on my chest. At first I just thought it was a little spot and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then it kind of crawled away after I took it off. So that was super gross. Probably picked it up when I was at the Scrapyard yesterday morning, which means I transported it across the border into Saskatchewan. Really gross. Anyway, I'm gonna go look at some signs this morning. Hopefully find some stuff and then head off to Saskatoon.
And for what I know was love and concern, really made me anxious the whole ride away as I read this text message that my wife tells me it could have left his little head inside of me and is burrowing inside of my body right now. So, yeah, that was gross.
So as I'm driving along, I'm kind of like feeling scratchy. Like I found this tick on me this morning and I don't think it bit me or anything yet, but then I've never had a tick on me before, which is maybe weird, but I've never had a tick. And I don't know if they travel in packs or if I should only just expect there to be one, but now I'm starting to think like, you know, do I have more that I can't see that are in my hair and stuff? So yeah, so I'm nervous about that. Now I'm gonna Google it probably and find out that they lay their eggs or something, and I don't know. Anyway, so as I'm driving along, I'm feeling like I have this like nervous feeling that I might have a tick on me, and I don't know. It's not great. But yeah, try not to be too distracted while I'm driving along here. But yeah, I'll have to be a little bit more careful when I go through the bush and the trees and stuff in the future, maybe wear some bug spray. As you can see in the back, there's a lot more stuff back there after this morning's pick. Got a few rare oil cans, really cool big Structo fire truck from the 1950s, an old slot machine, so a few things that weren't oil and gas related. Did get a cool, it's William Penn oil. It's from North Star Oil, but it's fairly uncommon out where I am. It's a brand that really is localized around Manitoba and a couple other areas. So I was able to get a long, skinny William Penn sign. So yeah, got some cool stuff. So headed towards Saskatoon now. Gonna stop and see a fellow out there who's got some stuff for sale. And then I'm gonna aim for the home stretch back to Edmonton tonight. So with any luck, I'll get some stuff in Saskatoon and then I'll head back home. But the van is nearly full. Look at that. You kind of see stuff piled up back there. I can still see out the back window, which is good. But hopefully by the time I get home, it'll be almost full up to the roof. That's the goal anyway. So, all right. So now I'm just gonna drive down the highway and head towards Saskatoon. So the highway has just come to an abrupt end and is now nothing but a gravel road. It's all construction, so I don't know if it's because of this flooding. I wouldn't think so. I think it looks like they're doing some pretty major road work. There's absolutely no road surface left. Usually they leave like half of it so you can at least drive on hardtop for a little while, but yeah, this is just nothing but gravel. So slow and steady for a little while at least anyway. It looks like it goes on for a few miles. So it looked like the highway, well, turns out the highway, I guess, was washed out. There's a big lake just kind of to my right over here, and it normally doesn't encroach on the highway, but completely washed out a section. So that's why there was no road left, is that they're just rebuilding it. So it's just all, you know, hard packed rock and gravel and stuff like that. So really weird. You don't often see flooding in the prairies like that. But it has been a you know, there was probably a lot of snow this winter, and with the melt off and rain, just a little more than that road could handle. So back on hardtop now, and you know, back up to a regular highway speed. So off I go. So I don't know how I did it. I think it was after I went through the construction. I got turned a little bit around, and I'm now like an extra hour away from Saskatoon. So I should have been there pretty much by now. But because of this little detour I got myself into, I somehow ended up off Highway 16, the main highway, and ended up north of Saskatoon. So yeah, so a little bit of groundwork to make up now. I'm supposed to be at a guy's place in an hour. I'll be lucky if I make it there on time. So yeah, it's gonna always sucks to take a little detour like this, but who knows, maybe I'll find some cool stuff along the way. So I am loaded up. I just got back from Saskatoon, who had a whole bunch of cool old signs. The back of the van is really full now, and I'm gonna be headed back home. So now it's just open highway back home, and unloaded the shop, and I'll show you guys what I got. So some of the things I got, this Dominion Royal Tire sign, it's porcelain. It stands nearly 6 feet tall. It's a really cool early tire display. Some porcelain 7-Up signs, double-sided Briggs & Stratton, Jersey Milk chocolate bar sign, North Star William Penn sign, that's a big one too. It's about 5, nearly 6 feet tall. Old airplane propeller, Sweet Capital cigarette tin sign, a big one. And it's got the girl on it. New grape soda. Some vintage sailing ship block and tackle, wooden block and tackle with the rope. So that's going to take some work to unknot that and get it set up. Big giant 4x8 foot 1930s Coca-Cola sign. That's pretty cool. Porcelain license plates, a bunch of oil cans. Some of these ones are a little bit more hard to find. That's why I picked them up. Homemade trophy. It looks like it was for either skating or curling or something, so pretty cool that they made it themselves, and it looked like they passed it around for probably 20-30 years. Sky Chief off of the gas pump, that's porcelain. Redhead grease tin. Lots of signs, as you can see. This is kind of a cool early piece. It's from the Hudson's Bay Company, one of the oldest companies in existence. It's when they were selling land, so that's a really early sign. It's in a more modern frame, like probably from the 1940s or 50s frame, but the piece itself, I checked it out and it looks 1800, something like that, so really cool. Lots of neat old sirens. That one's a siren with a light attached. Old police sirens, so if somebody had a police car that they're trying to restore, that'd be cool. Fire station call box, an old pressed steel fire truck, shipping signs. That's this over here is kind of cool. It's a World War II aircraft training. So it's basically the cockpit out of a fighter plane that was set up with seat and tiller and all that stuff for training pilots in the Second World War. I have to assemble it still, but really rare piece. This old Erector truck. It's quite large. I don't know if you can see the size of my hand. It's a pretty big truck. Porcelain California license plate. This is the box for the Erector set. So it kind of goes on and on and on. So it's going to keep me busy for quite some time unpacking all this stuff. But yeah, just thought I'd give you So needless to say, I'm pretty tired. That was a long trip, 1,500 kilometers, about 1,000 miles. I never did replace my confiscated razor blade, so I'm getting a little bit of stubble here, so I'm going to have to shave when I get back home. The van, as for the van, I paid $650 for it. Looks like I have a buyer for around $650, $750. So I'll get all my money back on the van, which is cool, and it actually drove amazing. So cool little van. If I needed a van, I would keep it, but I don't. I've already got one that I use. But yeah, I hope you like tuning in these videos. This one was pretty ambitious. and almost like a little mini series sort of thing. But appreciate you sticking with me on this journey. It was fun for me. I hope it was fun for you guys to watch. And if you enjoy the stuff, subscribe. I try and put these videos out once every week or 2 weeks or so. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.